for delay. And the scholarly communication is a very vast topic. The scholarly writing is one fascicule of the total scholarly communication, which takes the cycle of reading, writing, and also the communication. So I'm confining myself to the just writing of scholarly papers. That's what is assigned to me. And first thing is, just good ideas or a good research will not give a good impact unless we communicate well in a good journal and a scholarly journal. Until that, it will not be visible or it will not be known to anybody. So that is very clear. And any scientific process reporting the result after authentication, that is from the peer review to the pool of knowledge, is very, very important. Otherwise, uh, publish or perish is going to apply for everybody, and you have to publish, otherwise your research is waste. So that is what. And if you want to make it very popular, if you want to have a good impact factor, you have to write well. And also editorial board will accept based on your writing style. So is scholarly writing is just an adoption of a style of writing of a particular journal? Is it just a style? If that is the case, anybody will use it and then write it. Is it just a style? And also there is a one other question everybody asked me was, is language important or idea of knowledge of the topic important? In fact, both are important. So writing is nothing but thinking. Whatever is in your mind will come onto your hand and writing. So writing implies thinking. Arrange your thoughts in a specific manner, structured a complex idea. That is the most important thing in any scholarly writing. So thinking is nothing but your writing. And cultivating an original thought, there are two things. One is critical thinking and creative writing. It is not creative writing, it is a critical thinking that arrange the content to the context. That is most important. So that has to be done in the scholarly writing. See, one cannot just write someone else's thoughts, or you cannot just repeat their thoughts in our writing. No. And one need to take those thoughts, do little bit of research, do little bit of critical thinking, add your thought to your context and your purpose. That is the whole concept of writing. So without somebody's thought, everything will not be your original thoughts. It has to be derived from somebody's thoughts. That means review of literature, and then critically think about it, and then add your thoughts to that particular context and to that particular purpose, and then go on. That is really a scholarly writing. And other important things are, it should be very clear what you are saying. And you have to properly formulate an idea, translate it into words, and make it a sound. Then it sounds very good. The scholarly writing looks very good. See, whole idea is you are communicating some other people in a structured way so that they understand your communication. That is the whole idea of things. That is why there are some formulation and then some clarity, some precision, and making it good. That is what is happening. Whole article have got different section. Somebody will read methods and materials. Somebody will read only abstract and see whether it is relevant or not. Somebody will go through the findings and discussion and your conclusion. See, each one, that is why it is structured. Structuring is not necessarily just for the sake of writing looks good or makes good. No, it is to address the audience. Whoever wants whatever the idea they want in the whole of article, they can read only that particular part or that particular section. That is why it has been structured in a suitable way. And see, reporting this to the pool of knowledge is one other idea of writing. So there are four major aspects in writing. One is the style. Other one is the strategy, how you are writing, how you are defining the research results, and formats and content, nuts and bolts of format and content, and following the strict instruction of that particular journal, author instruction. You have to read thoroughly and follow that particular author instruction precisely. That it becomes most important. There are peer critics of scientific reading. Scientific writing was all journals have set of instruction for authors, how their paper should be formatted for submission. That each journal, that is the primary things one has to do as an author. You have to read that instruction, set of instruction from the journals to format this particular article. See, idea is different. The formatting to the style of that particular journal, you have to be familiar with the style of instruction, set of instruction from the journals. So therefore, there is format, there is style, and there is content. Content is not just content to that particular context. So format, style, and content to the context is becoming important. Above all that, precision, clarity, and economy. That means no repetition, unnecessary writing, unnecessary explanations, and make it economy. That means they let them read what they in precisely. They need not to go for a social science like writing unnecessarily. You push so many examples, put it and make it lengthy. That should not happen. In science, particularly science and engineering, precision is more important. Precision doesn't mean that incomplete sentence, incomplete things are there. Clarity has to be established. So when you use active voice, that economy can be established. Writing economy can be established. If you want to write in a passive voice, it goes too long. If you use an active voice, it will be very precise. So these three are format, style, and content is important for scholarly writing. In a precise clarity and economy is maintained. That's becoming important in scholarly writing. So many people these are thinking about, okay, they can write how to structure that particular article, how to order that, how to organize that. Some people keep working and then they will do the iteration. They will put first one paragraph and then next, or otherwise again they'll change. And the flow, logical flow should be very good. To make a logical flow, that arrangement of the paragraphs is important. Arrangement, that particular logical flow of messages is becoming important. So again, it will, to make it suitable, this particular papers are divided into sections. And people should know what should go into each of those sections. So there are the abstract, introduction, methods and materials, the results, discussion and reference, and so many things are. So one should know what should be the abstract and how it should be written, what should be the list. And to achieve that, first you have to make an outline. Then list out all major points that you want to write. So in the beginning itself, you cannot start, okay, introduction, you write all the introduction, write all the abstract, write something on the method. No, first list out your major points. List and prepare an outline, how your article goes and how article is communicated when compared to other articles already published in a particular journal. So that is the better to think about it, work out about it, and list the major points before you begin to write. You should not go straight onto that. Nobody will start with, okay, open a Word file and then start typing the article. It can never happen. It is your thinking, your organization, and your what are the major points, what are the minor points, what is the explanation, what is the justification. So many things are there in that. Maybe there are 2 messages, 10 messages, but all that message has to be put across to the users in a suitable way, and it should be proven. It should be authenticated. So for that, there are so many steps and logical orders are there. So you have to maintain. If you are using a multiple authors, you have to negotiate with them, and all points should be agreed. All agreed points from all the group members has to be listed out. Then otherwise somebody will say in a different style and they may not agree. So ensure that all the points of that particular group is agreed. So that is when you are doing with the multiple authors or different disciplines, interdisciplinary article, if you want to negotiate with them. These are the something compliance that you have to maintain to come out with a good result. And if you are writing alone, there is a different thing. If you are working with somebody in your own field, it is a different style of negotiation. If you are communicating with the other field, interdisciplinary work, then you have to negotiate in a different style. So these are all the preparatory work for before going for articles or research. So there is a question: is a scholarly writing and academic writing same or not? Majority are thinking that, okay, scholarly writing and academic writing is the same thing. But each writing has got some different purpose. Scholarly writing and academic writing is treated synonymously, but there are some variations due to the purpose and characteristics of the writing. When you are writing some animal studies in biology, there is a different thing. When you are writing in your engineering or social science or humanities, there are different way of writing. There are different form of writing, format of writing, even the purpose of writing. Their characteristics also changes from subject to subject. At least physical science and natural science or social science or humanities, they each one have got their own different approach. So academic writing and scholarly writing is not exactly same. There are some variations. That is why there are some variations. Academic writing, even essays, course papers, and then translation, thesis, dissertations, technical reports. So many are there. So each one are writing, but there are so many writings are there. All other forms, even collection of articles, is it going to be a scholarly? Articles are scholarly, but essays, critical review, trade publication, even the textbook. Textbook is not really a scholarly material. It is a compiled material for a particular course material, particular audience, particular student. So the original monographs and journal articles are preferred form of scholarly writing. Otherwise, there are so many other academic writings are there. First, understand the guiding principle to express your thoughts and research. Most important, guiding principle for writing the scholarly articles or scholarly papers. And further, then practice makes your writing much better. Keep writing and keep speaking. See, good speakers becomes after many of the speeches. And practice the speeches, practice this writing. So writing will not you will not get that particular experience of writing or thoughts or research without practicing it. If you, supposing you are a professor now, if you read your article when you are in the beginning of your career or beginning of your studies, you feel very bad. Okay, did I written such a bad article or such a poor article? That's how we feel. Even after completion of a thesis and after you complete your PhD, you feel my thesis is not good. Earlier, that itself was a big work. So that experience and understanding, and that gives a value. That gives that impact. That gives a lot of impact on your writing. So keep writing, practice it, then you will become a writer. Otherwise, no. And the types of scholar, that's what, even within the scholarly communication, it depends on the purpose of academic activity. So, as I said, before writing, understand your objectives thoroughly. And your objectives is the guiding principle for what to put in and whom you are addressing. Whether you are addressing a student level or a professor or a scientist level or experts, where and what kind of journals, what level of audience you are addressing. And also whether you are using a good literature that supports your idea, that supports your objective, that supports your structure of the content or a context. That also is becoming an important thing. And also you have to think about the other things, ethical things, or is it going to be offensive to somebody? Is it going to limit it to the particular readership? So all these things are becoming very important, clear and concise. And there is one other thing is what kind of vocabulary you have to use. It has to be, it depends on what kind of audience that you are addressing. Fundamental ideas and terms in the field. What is that? And usually when we write to our own field, we think that these concepts are known already, these terminologies are known to that particular audience. We need not to define them. Otherwise, if it is a new one, you have to define it. But if it's a known audience, you need not to define. And if it is a specialized jargons, then you have to define. So what is the original thoughts then? It comes out from your mind, is something miracle, something unique, which nobody knows. Is it original thoughts? How do you define original thoughts is also important to define your own work, your own writings. So original thoughts comes through the primary research or a synthesis and present unique perspectives of previous research. That means literature review. And author is expected to have insight on the, and insights must be grounded into the research, critical reading, analysis, rather than personal experience. Personal experience are not really original thoughts. It is original to you, not for the knowledge, not for the universe of knowledge. Actually, it is your opinion. Your opinion doesn't become scholarly unless it is tested and communicated and authenticated. So that becomes important. So primary literature, when you read a primary research or a synthesis of primary literature, comes out with a new idea, give your insight into that and come out with your grounded theory, then it becomes a original thought. So with this background, let us come to the writing process. There are 4 stages of writing process: pre-writing, writing, revising, and proofing. These are the 4 broad the steps for writing. Pre-writing is nothing but review the assignment, searching and researching. It's an iterative process. You search some literature, and then it will not be very good. Again, you will search in altered combination of the terminology or phrase search or even the database that you are searching. So many things are there in the searching and literature. It's a big process. By itself is a big training for 2 to 3 days, because that searching logic, search strategy is totally different. It's not okay. You type something in the Google, it gives you so many results, so many hits, and you think that is the exhaustive literature, which is a myth. It cannot happen. You have to go to the particular database. You have to conduct a search in the logic that applies to that particular database. It may be a proximity search, it may be a phrase search, it may be a combination of terminologies or combination of phrase or creating a context. All these things have its own valid search strategy. So study, and then after you get the search result, you have to study critically. First you search, you study at the abstract level whether it is relevant or not, under how much it is relevant, how much prioritizing the search result, and then you start take a notes and then outline it and then generate the ideas. Until you organize, outline it, you will not generate a good idea about your writing itself. This process is a first step that you have to do, and this has to be done systematically. Then only you will come up to that level of taking a notes, outline it, and generate ideas to that particular topic for your research or your research outcome. This itself, so many people write review papers using this method. Literature reviews or review articles are written using this way. So that is the one thing. Then writing process. First, develop a good thesis statement. That is at the title and a thesis statement. Organize the idea in paragraphs. You know how to write a paragraph. There is a theme sentence and then conclusion. At each paragraph is an idea. Idea sentence is the first sentence, that is theme sentence, and then conclusion sentence. Even within the 4 lines or a 5 line or a 10 lines, that paragraph has to be written for each messages. And cite the source. Whatever may be the style you are choosing, it may be APS style or some other style. You have to choose the style. Use outlines and technique. So that is where you are going to come to the writing process. So in that, these are the things which is included in a writing process. Then you have to revise. Revise at the idea level, That means organization, thesis statement, paragraphs, and you have to organize, revise the idea level, whether it is going in a logical flow or not, whether it really communicates or not. Next goes to sentence level. Whether word choices are good, conclusions or concision or a transition or a voice, what kind of voice and what kind of tone that it is using, and what style it is using at each level. So this is a revising process, idea level and sentence level. Last step is proofreading. It is submitting the paper with you have to see the grammar or format errors, and you can use some tools like Grammarly or word spell check or something. So this is a last step before submission. So with this particular preview of scholarly writing, and we will enter into the style and format. So in the style process, be clear and concise. As I said, one has to use active voice. It shortens the sentence. That's what. If you use a passive word, it is a lengthy sentence. It makes you too long. And precise word use critical. And then technical terminology has to be derived properly, defined properly to achieve the better economy of writing. Appropriate acronyms and abbreviations has to be addressed towards the economy. Unnecessarily don't use the jargons and go into this. If writing is highly technical, that is what I explained you, technical jargons are important. Your level of writing is highly technical journals, then use a technical. If your writing is a general science audience, you have to limit the technical jargons. Otherwise, it will not be accepted. Things you avoid, don't try to impress the people by writing some unknown terminologies, unknown word, which is bombastic words, if people say like that, just to project themselves or just to impress somebody in the form of using the unknown words. No, I never heard of words. That is just to impress yourself to other audience is not good, and people will not accept it. And at the same time, do not use colloquial speech, slang, or a childish word or a phrase. Don't use unnecessary words. Next thing is, do not use a contraction. See, example is don't, do not. Instead of saying do not, don't. We say don't. That kind of thing is not allowed in this scholarly communication. You have to use full form. Don't use contractions of this word. Abbreviations also, except unit of measure. Don't use unnecessary abbreviation. Don't define yourself. Some places you have to use abbreviated. So say 2 minutes or 2 millimeter, 10 minutes, all these things, there are something which new. And there are some places you never have to abbreviate. Don't use. That is non-data context. So, and next is list of common abbreviations are available. That abbreviations you can use it. So there are some areas you can use, some areas you must use, some areas never use. And that you have to be very clear. And you all know the scientific communication, scholarly writing uses the past tense. Because you are writing about already done research, completed research. You are reflecting the work. You are writing about your already completed research. You have to use the past tense only. You can't use the present tense. And when referring to the actual work already you did, you have to write, okay, I did use this. All these things have to be written in past tense. And when you're citing also, you have to do that. Next thing is first person or a third person, which one to use. This is one thing which is not, there is no fast and rule. There is no strict rule in this. Some journals are strict in third person. Some journals are avoiding a first person. Some very, the biological science journals, biology and ecology journals, they moved away from very strict adherence of third person construction. Permit limited use of first person in published paper. Some disciplines in biomedical science prefer third person construction. So first person or a third person depends on the particular, that is defined in the author instruction itself. It's not very clear, and some are good, some are very strict. First person construction, better you avoid. Whether they allow or not, better you avoid. Use of active verbs. I have given two examples. Mouse consumed oxygen at a higher rate. In the passive voice, oxygen was consumed by mouse at higher rate. So these two, avoid this. This is a lengthy sentence because it is a passive voice, and also it is not really used in scientific communication. I use active verbs wherever it's possible. Writing overly uses of passive voice like is, was, all these things you have to very clearly. Which majority of the scientific communication have got this common rule that we have to use this. Even making it a small sentence is also a rule by itself and by practice. The clarity and effectiveness of your writing improve dramatically if you are using active voice. So precise word, past tense, active voice, and brevity. These four are most important in scholarly communication. Plagiarism of idea are easily avoided, adequately referenced. See, giving credit appropriately to all the articles that you are using. See, and otherwise, it is not just a plagiarism. For the sake of avoiding a plagiarism, you have to give the credits to the author. Also, you have to see. I write 101 thing. Why others should agree that whatever I've written is correct, unless you are authenticating those points using the already published literature and credit given to that particular author. So many textbooks also are doing that. They don't give a credit to anybody. They say whatever is written is written. But that's not the way that you have to communicate. And nobody will have, others will not accept you whatever you have written. So that is why you have to give the avoid plagiarism or to give a credit for, see, number of articles sometimes are accepted based on the number of references given by you, authenticating your ideas through the previous researches, and how you are highlighting that particular things, what additional thinking or you are giving it to that particular point is important. So that's why I think of references properly, cite it properly, both in the body of the literature as well as the reference level. So now we will come to the strategy for writing up research results. Get organized list, outline, a note card before starting a writing. So actually organizing those points, what you have found, see, there are two kind of findings. One you are finding from the literature review itself. See, when you are literature review, when you conduct a literature review, at the end of the literature review, you come out with one particular list of findings from the research. And other findings are from your own study. That is where you start getting into the discussion chapter. That is where you have, see, take out a result from the literature review, that findings, and again with your findings, both taking these two into consideration, you start discussing, you start authenticating your results and start discussion and start drawing the inferences for the article. And then each section, what it goes, right? How to write an introduction, how to write a design and conduct an experiment, and how to analyze and interpret the result, and how to write the result section, how to write the discussion. All these things are becoming part of this. See, each one have got us a different structure. See, that's what I am trying to communicate. But otherwise, see, I can superficially mention all these things. I can't give you a detailed account. Actually, if at all you want to make or address all the points of the scholarly writing, you need minimum 1 week crash course. Otherwise, you can't do it. See, because Each one I have to explain every section. Let us go in from the beginning of the first section, that is abstract, and then go for introduction, then go for the methods and material, then go for design and conducting of experiments, and write the result section, write the discussion section, write the title section. Also, I've got to separate things, and it's about the total service of the pay. And then what about the peer review? How to observe the, how to read that peer review observation and address and revise the galley proof, and how to prepare the final draft, and how to read that proofreading. All these things requires detailed study and detailed explanation, whereby I can communicate properly to each of these sections. So peer review process also we need to address, and the editors, what editors observe, what editor do not observe, what editors give importance in that particular style based on the instruction to that particular author review. What is that it's going to is important. And then write the abstract. How to write an abstract is also an important thing. Write a discussion is also everything. So these are the sections which I explain you little for after the structure and format of the content. So why scientific format? Already I have explained in the process of explaining the other thing, it just to avoid the confusion to the readers. There is no rigid, but somebody are rigid structure, somebody are not rigid in structure. And in social science, it is a different structure, and in science, it is a different structure. So example are there for various science. And if I start, first let me explain how to write each of these sections. The title, author, abstract, methods, result, discussion, acknowledgement, research. So each section addresses something or the other that we know about it. And majority of you know, I need not, but writing means each section together, that becomes a whole. That becomes an aggregation of an article, what each section. See, it's the abstract is a nutshell, it's a summary of the article. What did we do in a nutshell? That is what is abstract says. And what instruction says, what content it goes to the introduction. What is the problem? We define the problem clearly, contextually, with a proper wording. Here there is no long things. And materials and method. So there are two. One, some people say methodology. Actually, it is not methodology. Methodology means science of methods. Here we have to say materials and method used for this study. So how did I solve the problem? That goes into the materials and methods. Next one is results. What did we find out from our study? What are we doing? And what we did. See, each experiment finds problems also has to be result. Results means not positive things, even negative things are. If not approved, hypothesis also a good result. Otherwise, somebody will again repeat the experiment and come out with the same result. So negative findings also has to be given. That is also a result. Then discussion. What does it mean? What are the results says? So here it is important. Is discussion means findings of the literature review and findings of your own experiment, clubbing together, you discuss, come out with an highlights. Implications of the study, both earlier this was the thing and now it is this, earlier this was found and now it is found like this, or compare it. And also if there is a contradiction from the primary literature to your studies, then you have to discuss, highlight, and implications has to be drawn. And then acknowledgement is known to you, is who helped you, and literature citation, and then appendices. All these things are having its own content. What content has to go in. This is very, very important. So that's how the assembly of all these things becomes a literature. So what content go in? Abstract. Now come to abstract is, maybe it's usually one paragraph. It contains all aspects of the article. It takes from the whatever the question that you have investigated, your research question also has to be defined, and how you have designed your experiment and what method you have used, and major findings, including quantitative results or a trend, and interpretation and conclusion implications for the answer is important. So usually it has to be improved by yourself in this proper structure to make the user. If somebody wants to read your article, you have to tell him what is done and what is your output, what is your experiment, and what is the outcome of the article. Then he will read them in detail. If he cannot understand what is your study in detail, he will not study. So that's why usually the structured abstract helps to give a good impact for your journals and give a good result. Citations also it can be improved with your better abstract. So communicate legibly, clearly about what you did, what was your research question, what you covered, and what is a major interpretations or conclusions. So that gives that actually it attracts the user to read in detail. So that's how they read and cite. This is most important, particularly for users or readers to select your article, read in detail. So take care in this one, think, and it has to be revised at least minimum 4 to 5 times. It is not just okay. Some people think, and this abstract has to be written after you complete the article. Before that, don't try to write, okay, this I have undertaken the study on this particular nation to see the relevance of the current days in the electronic environment, all that. Okay. So in precise, you are writing what, why, how you have studied, and your outcome of the study. What did you found in this particular context and this currency? So that is becoming most important. Once you say that, then people will look into, if he wants to just see the method of your study in this context, you will go through that. So that is, this abstract is most important for any article to be successfully cited by people. And what should not be done? They should not give too much of background of study. Don't give references in here, and don't be incomplete sentence, or don't use too much of abbreviation so it confuses the reader and they will not read. And no illustration, no figure, no table or references in this particular thing. Must be written in a complete sentence of the paper. So next thing is introduction is the most important. Everything is important, but introduction actually it grabs the readers. It takes the readers, and readers will get the motivation to read in detail and appreciate this one once your introduction gives clarity for what article is, context of the work. You have to establish the context of the work, and you have to tell them what is your understanding of the problem till now. So what is the status of the day, and what is the status of that particular machine or a study or animal study, pure science studies, what pure science, given input to your applications. All these things, you need not to give it too much. Two sentence in each of these things has to become, and then purpose of the work has to be given. Hypothesis, question, problem that you have investigated. See, the readers read two things. One is context they read, and they read the purpose of the study. Then you have to explain the rationale and approach of the study and outcome of your study in detail. Little details are there in this introduction. So literally, introduction must answer the question, what was I studied? Actually, this introduction also is not written. You see, because it appears in the beginning, introduction is not written in the beginning itself. Introduction should be written after you complete the study. What was I studying? Why this is important? Question was important. What did I know before study? How this study advanced our knowledge? And like inverted triangle, it goes from broad to scope, broadest scope to or general to specific. This is start with a general or a broad topic and then focus your topic to the particular your results. particular study. So it has to be addressed from general to specific. That is an intention of this particular this introduction. You start with the generally about the subject or a field, then get into the slowly you have to define step by step and come to the specific or to the focus of this topic, from field to the topic. So that is how usually it is written in inverted triangle. Inverted triangle, the most important to the general it goes. So there are two other logics are there: inverted, the inductive logic or deductive logic. Usually scientific articles goes with a deductive logic, inductive logic, not inductive logic. Some people prefer inductive logic, particularly in social sciences. Next thing is material and methods, not methodology. That's what I wanted to make it very clear. Here you have to explain how this study was carried out. So, what method you have used, and general structure and organization of this one. In a applied science, you have to take a material or a technique or a technology studied, or in the biological study, either it is a plant, animal, or human. What kind of study? What is you used in this particular? And how pre-experiments handling was there, care, and when and where you are studied. Even the location has to be decided, not the location, a geographical location, or to the context of this. If it is required, that also has to be explained very thoroughly. Some people use GPS also for explaining this. Attitude. So whatever may be the case, is relevant material has to be given to create the context and how we have conducted a study. And it varies from place to place also. So that is why in what kind of environment you have studied, whether it is in cold countries or in a hot country, or where, how, this is more important. And this explanation, actually, so many people makes methods and material a separate chapter, because that becomes very important. In a journal articles, it is one separate section. And a description of study site, that means place, sampling design, how the experiment are structured, and even the variables also have been controlled. What variables you have controlled, what variables are not controlled, studied. These are also, and what extraneous variables are available in your study. All these things you have to explain in the variable part. Particularly in social science, they will explain what extraneous. See, sometimes when you are studying, you may not control the temperature itself. When you control the environment, so many extraneous variables are there while controlling your environment or temperature, or even many other aspects. So you have to define all those things, how you are measured. Then other next study will go with the hot country one and cold country one, or in the medium level or a particular temperature. All these things are going to be the control extraneous variables. So that you have to define. How many samples you have collected, what was your size. Actually, random control trial goes with a very good big samples, and some people go with a very small sample. All these things, and then protocols have to be defined, experimental procedures have to be defined, and data analyzed. What analysis you are going to use, quantitative or qualitative, or what type of statistical procedure that you have used in this particular study, that also has to be. Then you have to define the organizing of this, and what logical flow this article goes. That also has to be defined. In the quantitative data, you know how much, how long, when, how. So all these things are quantitative matters, and then indicates the statistical procedure that use in your results. And also you have to give the probability value also, whether it is below this particular normal, usually 0.05 probability, whether it comes to that level or not. So what is your probability level when using the statistical study? So the methods and materials in social science, they say it is a descriptive method, it is an inferential statistics is used and results are derived. But they don't describe this sample size, sample, how you are taken, why you have taken that sample. Everything, every method, every variable has to be declared. Otherwise, the person who read this may get a lot of confusion, or it can be disapproved in different environment. So that becomes very important. In the result section, objectively, you have to present objectively. Oh, this objective is proven like this. And key results without interpretation. You have to write without any interpretation. You just say this is the result, this is the result. You don't use any interpretation in this particular context. Interpretation and other things comes in the discussion section. Some people club it and it gives confusion. And some problems to avoid in this particular table. Do not reiterate each value from figure to table. Some people will give same thing in the figure also. Some people, particularly in journal article, don't repeat too much. Only key results are trends that conveys better. Convey that. You can't convey in detail in the 6-page or 4-page articles. Even when you are writing for the Nature, it's very precise. You can't even use one extra word or repetition of the words. That is becoming brevity. That gives a good brevity for publishing in a short form. In the 4 pages, so many things. And the waste of space and energy. Do not report raw data values. Raw data values you need not to. It is actually now it is becoming a big research data management is there and big data management is there. That goes to a different database. But in the text or research outcome, and it has to be summarized as a means and percentage. Don't go with the raw data. You can precisely say, calculate, organize data. Now, this is the discussion is your actual result. Is it interpret your result? It is to interpret your result in the light of what was already known. That means literature review. You know something about already known about these things, and taking this result, you are going to interpret your result and explain our new understanding that is finding the problem. You are not just saying, I got this result because this is 100%, 80% of the samples gives this response and 60% is this one. This is just a description of the table. It is not really interpretation. You interpret from the literature, what is already primary literature says, what is established already till date, and now your particular findings, what is that knowledge that it is going to add? How you are going to highlight the material or implications or inferences you are drawn based on these two. Inference is different. Inference in the discussion is different. Inference between the literature, primary literature outcome plus your outcome, you have to discuss about that particular differences or similarity or improvement, or by the time it is application of some technology or applications of the computer technology, why traditional method was like this, why automation method is giving this result. So like that, there are so many reasons, so many things that you can draw your implications of the study. You can't draw the implications from your own results. That is wrong. You have to go with this. Discussion is a most important part to communicate and add to the knowledge. And hypothesis, whether hypothesis is proven or not proven, why it is not proven, how it is proven, why it is not proven, all these things comes in the discussion. And you pose a literature you have cited, but it does not simply repeat or rearrange your understanding. See, usually there is a connection between your introduction and the discussion or result. There is a direct link between the introduction and this. Fundamental question to answer here is, do your result provide answer to your testable hypothesis? If so, how do you interpret your findings? See, that means it is asking you, it is linking that. Your question was asked in the introduction already, and your hypothesis was derived, and your result that you come out with things, whether it has answered that or not. And do your findings agree with what others have shown? That means others are nothing but literature that you have read in the literature review. If not, do they suggest an alternative explanation, or perhaps unforeseen design flaw in our experiments. So that you have to look back whether I have done that, all those particular procedures which has already been done, and what they come out, and what is the flaw in the experiments. And given your conclusion, what is our new understandings of the problem you investigated outlined in the introduction? Some of these things very clearly give you an idea to introspect yourself whether I have done a good or not, where is the problem, where the flaw is there, whether it is in interpretation, whether it is in study of the literature, in the earlier study, whether I have fully understood what has already been done and what I am doing. There is some clarity to get your experiments done is correct or not. What is your new understanding is going to give, how it is going to contribute to the existing knowledge. One also at the end we give what is the next step or what is the future study, that experiment that can be done. So I have done up to this. It was done up to that level. Now I have investigated further, and what can be done next, further studies. What are the further studies? These are all becoming a fundamental questions that you are going to discuss in the discussion chapter. So usually data summaries are three types. One is text, you write, table, and figures. So there is a lot of guidelines about how to make a table. What should be the brevity of the table? How it should be defined. In a small table, actually tables and figures are pictorial representation of visibility of the information. It gives much better visibility for this. You all see graphs gives a much better clarity. As soon you see, you will get an idea, okay, this is it. Otherwise, in the text form, you have to read full and then understand. Here it is not like that. So there are some guidelines. Each journals have got some guidelines, particularly for engineering and science. Tables and figures are most important. And the instruction for preparing the tables and figures has to be understood thoroughly. Otherwise, you will not do the justice for this. And majority of the articles are rejected based on this particular table. Some table, there is no 100% compare. When you compare the result with the other description, it will not come up to the specification. It will not come up to 100%. Somewhere there is and it doesn't match the calculation and does not describe very clearly. If there are some 8 variables or 5 variables or 3 variables or 2, see this, as the variables increases, your description and representation in a table also becomes complex. So that is why you need to read a lot of this. And each scholarly communication, particularly engineering science, they stress more upon the tables and figures. Instruction materials about this is very important. Next one is how to cite other sources. Each one, they say, people think, okay, this author, year, and then title, and then source, and then year, and pages wherever it is left. But it is not that simple. Standard text citation format is most important. So here, okay, in the body of the text, body of the literature or the article, there are 2 things. Okay, they'll write a last name of the author, and within the bracket, the year they give, and they describe, okay, there are some 10-15 standard words, how to, this bug juice in 1970 enunciate, or this particular, he found, all these things, they write, okay, connecting words are there. Whereas in the book, it has got a page numbers, because the content is so much, 200 pages, 300 pages, they can't browse everything. When you mention the page numbers, they get this one. But in the book citation, they have to indicate the page numbers. Otherwise, it is difficult to find. The readers find it difficult. And if it is the internet resources, how to cite? Usually reference citations such as government document, technical report. So each document have got a different, if it is 2 authors, more than 2 authors, multiple authors, what to do? So there are some do's and don'ts also are there. Footnoting, although commonly done in books, other literary works, is only rarely done in nowadays. Cite references in the flow of text as shown in the earlier things. And see, in the particularly citations, there are so many things I describe here. Reporting a statistical result, descriptive study, and if it is an inferential test, how it has to be done. Summarizing the statistical test also, it becomes very difficult, and it has to be clearly understood. Instructions of that particular journal is required. Yes, Sandeep, ಇದು ಬ್ಯಾಟ್ರಿ ಆನ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಕಣಮ್ಮ. ಬ್ಯಾಟ್ರಿ ಆನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಬೇಗ ಬೇಗ. So there are some questions I give you, because I am running very fast because the time is approaching. The general questions usually that we know for about the writing is, how do I write and place main section and subheadings? How do I write the numbers in the text? What if I start a sentence with a number? These are all some general questions. And in the abstract section, FAQs are there. What is the structure of abstract? Is there any fixed structure? And should I give a detailed methods in the abstract? What results should be reported in the abstract? How do I know when I have enough information in my abstract? How long should my abstract be? How long it should be? It should be 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, or when should abstract be written? So these are all the, see, based on these questions only the guidelines are derived. So it is very well known the abstract should be written at the after you complete the paper, and then you have to. And how long should the abstract be? It should be usually 1 paragraph, 200 words. And how should I know I have enough information in my abstract? If it is structured, if you, as I said, questions, methods, and your outcome and your highlight is mentioned, then only it will attract the attention of the users. It should be, the basic principle is you have to attract your users where their interesting point has to be given there. What results should be reported in the abstract? Main results, not all the results. Don't give the too much detailed method of the study, no. And you should not be giving the long background of the study. Everything has to be maintained from the whole study in a precisely. And the most important, how to select that particular important points is, when you are addressing the audience, you know what are the major doubts that usually that readers gets. Address those things. That is a logical thinking. It is not a strict rule. Next one, introduction section. What is the general structure of introduction? With what level of information should I begin my introduction? Where should I state the purpose of my research? How do I cite outside reference in the text? See, these are all really the doubts that occurs when you start really hold a paper and a pen. General structure is there a fixed structure? Yes. As we said, the introduction first paragraph goes from general to specific of the field. Next, you are going to define your research questions. And next, with a very clear focus of the topic and why you are done, and what level should I begin introduction. See, actually, what level of information? This is general to specific, and you are writing what you are addressing. Now, there are defined formula for the focus in the social science, focus in the general science, focus in biomedical science, focus in applied engineering subject. These are, see, defining an application science, applied science like engineering is most important. Where do you, in the introduction itself? Otherwise, it doesn't create a context. It's all this written to create the context for your content. How do you create the context? You should have it in your mind. And also, what is that you come out with? What is the question that you need a hypothesis or So that also has to be clear. Then only they read the next sections and try to find out what is the answer for all these questions. So that is more important in the introduction. In the method section, do I have to say where and when I did my research? Actually, yes, you have to say. How should the methods be organized? Already, as I said, what method you have used, where you have used, how you have used, what is the context that you have derived. You have to derive all around that particular methodology to that particular experiments or to that particular applications. You have to define. And that means it is to make the other peers to understand what method you have used. See, some methods just mentioning itself is a descriptive study. You need not to derive the what is descriptive study, what is inferential statistic. You need not. Those kind of standard methodology or methods are understood by the users of that particular field. So where you have to derive, how should you mention about it, and how should methods should be organized, all these things is a logical flow based on that. When should I use subheadings? Yeah. Majority to give a clarification about if it is a multiple variables, you have to give many subheadings based on the variables. What should be the style of my presentation? It is in the style structure itself, and the author instruction they give you. What kind of methods, details should be included? See, as I said, if our audience are ignorant, they don't know about a particular method, then you have to explain and need not to explain unnecessarily. You have to explain what is not ordinarily used. So that is what is important to make it precise. And what are the quantitative details of the method that should be included? This also is a logical flow. How do I identify treatment and controls? What kind of information should I include to describe my data analysis? So already I've explained about data analysis, what kind of methods you are using, what statistical analysis, what is the quantitative method that you are using. And then comes to result. What are the key results? So defining a key results is based on the hypothesis itself. Your hypothesis, if you are clear about your hypothesis, you will know what are the key results. Should I use both tables and figures to present the same data? No, it should not be. See, it is a repetition. Once you write in text, then in table, then in figure. In the article, brevity is very important. To achieve that brevity, you should not repeat it in a different form. What data should I report in the text? This also based on your hypothesis, it can be defined. How do I write number of numbers in the text? So that is also a style sheet. If you are using a APA style, then it will give you the details of how numbering has to go. Should I report negative results? That's the most important. So many people say our hypothesis is not proven. That's why it is a bad result. No, actually negative result is equally important like a positive result. Or otherwise, see, some of the things, because take for example COVID vaccination, it cannot be proven till it completes certain. If after 1 year you can study and say, okay, this particular vaccination effective for about 1 year, or after 2 years you will know, 3 years you will know 4. So some of the things you will not know. That's why the negative results also has to be communicated. You will not know. So that perpetually you have to do many research, you have to repeat at a different time or a duration. When should I use figures or tables to show the result? See, if one thing is, this is again a logical decision. If textual messages is going 2 page, 3 page, if we can bring it down to 1 figure or 2 figure and a table, and if you can present it very clearly for all the variables, then it is better that you use figure or table. And so many times majority people use table than the figures. How do I number the tables and figures? There is also style sheet method. Style sheet will derive you and give you the details. How do you have to number the table On the top itself, table number 1, table 2, table 3, continuity is given for all the section or not, or the only for some sections, or the total article itself. That will give you the detail. That is a problem of style sheet. You read the style sheet, you will know whether to number is to be given in order, or a ordinal number, or a running number, whatever is there. It mentions. Let's see, some table first, table second, ordinal numbers are there. Cardinal numbers are not usually given in the tables. That again has to be derived from the style sheet itself. When should I abbreviate my word figures? It's not usual. There are certain sections it permits, again by the style sheet. How do I format and table figures? That is also format is taken care of in the style sheet. APA style, that's a big book. And what information should appear in my legends? This also gives for the justification. That's your decision, author's decision. Should I include title with my figures? No. To that particular context, your title means not the title of the article. Title of the figure has to be given. Otherwise, it will not represent the context. Where should I place my tables and figures? In the manuscript. See, this is one question. With the manuscript, usually you write table first and explanation next, figures and explanation side by side or on the above and but when you are publishing in a journal, they may give you the appendix. They may mention table number so and so in appendix. So that is a convenience of the print environment or electronic environment or where or format. That is again a format problem of that particular journal. How do I refer the tables and figures from the text? Again, this is also style sheet problem. How do I decide on symbols, lines, bar fields to represent the different variables? This is also clearly from the instruction. Now come to the discussion section. See, why I'm stating this FAQ I collected is when you read in a different flow of presentation, you will not get these doubts. What is the function of the discussion? What is the writing style I should use for the discussion? How should I approach organizing the discussion? How much of the results should be reiterated in the discussion? Should any results be given in the discussion? How does discussion connects to the introduction? How is the work of others used in the discussion? See, I have already explained. Supposing I ask you to answer each and every of this question, you get a real doubt. And then you reiterate and reinforce your understanding. What is the function of a discussion? Then to draw the implications. It is actually between what is already known and what you found out and what is the result of the study. Between these two, taking these two into consideration, that is the real functions of the discussion. Actually, I have very clearly stated in the slide function of the discussion. What is the writing style should I use in discussion? I have not clearly mentioned about writing style of using that. There are so many, but 10 to 15 points. How do you divide the discussion itself? Is it based on your finding list? Is it based on the hypothesis? Is it based on the applications? See, there are so many. It is not a question of style. It is a logical flow of understanding. So some people, okay, in the social science, the hypothesis 1, they describe it and they say not approved or approved. And they discuss these things in there. But in science, it is not that way. In engineering, it is not that way, like a social science. But these logical conclusions drawn between what is already known and what is the result has to be discussed based on first is experiment and hypothesis and the context of the discussion and applications. So it is a author's understanding about how in what logical order it has to go. That is how it can be derived. But it is a tough question. It is not that easy. Whatever I say it is, there are different approaches. this I could give. That's why I said, if I take all these questions into consideration, minimum 1 week crash course has to be given in these things. And we can make anybody a good writer if we create this good understanding of all these questions. And presentations are very clearly given, and even the style sheets has to be discussed, and even the format has to be discussed. In just figures and tables to make you understand needs 3 hours. And it has got elaborate description about the table itself, 5-column table. And rows, how it has to be, the variables, how it has to be represented, where it has to be represented, what coloring you have to use for writing this comment and other comment, and what colors have to be defined very clearly in the bar chart. Everything is there. Everything is there. So if you are perfect about all these things, then any best journal in the world cannot point out any mistakes. So we can prepare the best of the best writers if we go in detail in these things. And whether the discussion connect to introduction or not, as I already explained you, it directly connects to the introduction. Discussion connects to the introduction because that is where you have derived your problem. That is where you have posed a problem. You pose your question. And whether that a question is answered in the discussion section or not is a direct connection. New results be given in the discussion, whether should be given it without giving a new results, how can you discuss? How much of results should be reiterated in the discussion? Almost major points. How is the work of others used in my discussion? To the context, definitely you have to. How do I cite? All these things need clear understanding. Otherwise, you get a rejection of them. These are all format and a context, and also the whole understanding. How do the other readers should understand your article if this clarity is not there? And also the structure of the article itself give the brevity. Structure of the article itself will make the readers, okay, should I read this or not? Should I go for this or not? Should I read results itself? Then I will know the discussion or not. See, the point of, oh no, see, in a newspaper, everybody will not read every column. And even in the article also, everybody is not interested in everything. Somebody may be result in the conclusion. Somebody may be in methodology. Somebody may be in the discussion mode itself. And justification that you are giving in the discussion itself. See, this is how this scholarly communication across the scientists are happening. So each one of this is very important. Next thing is references of this cited section. General examples in the single author articles, 2 author article, 3 or more authors article, unknown authors. There are so many articles, unknown authors are there. Should we take it as really a good article or not? Unknown author, but it is peer reviewed. Should we take it or not? And reference found only as citation in another article. And why the internet web environment, how do we take it? And so many articles are, see, one particular point is justified by 100 articles or 10 articles or 20 articles. How do you cite those? All 10 articles for one particular justification, one particular message. There is a format in it. And citation format is not shown in this one. So many are very clearly mentioned about this citations. Where does this period go before, after reference? Journal articles, books, articles in book, theses, and do I indent my citation? This is again a format questions. And how do I sequence the citations in the? This is one of the confusing factor. Each style, the CBE style gives a different, the APA style gives a different, and even engineering science, some of the formats are now derived or giving a different sequence. And some are just numbering, some are alphabetically arranged, author, last name, and that connects. See, this symbiotic relationship between the inline citation, that means in the body of the citation, to the references that quoted, that linking. See, as soon as I see the reference, I should directly go to that particular section where it is written and why. And if it is to be open, that particular article from a web environment or a traditional environment, they should get the details of that particular article published somewhere. That identity has to be established. So this is a purpose. It is not just a ritual. Oh, this has to be written like this, so we write. It is not like that. It is to help the readers to find out whether that citation, the original article is there, and if it is yes, and if where to open, how to find. And 30% of the citation reference are, there are so many mistakes. Volume number is different, and page number is different, journal title is different. So many mistakes are there. That's why, see, deliberately mistakes are made because they don't want to give the original citations. And they don't want readers to find out and see if it is a plagiarism or not. So if they are quoting same thing or not, if they want to confuse somebody. So, see, this particular citation is really, the article is derivative of this reference. And then your contribution is only the discussion and the result. All other things are the aggregation from the particular references and articles published already. So this aggregation has to be very clear. Then only you can derive your result is correct or not. And multiple authors, do I list of them in full citation? See, if there are 10 authors, how do I write? At all we are writing in the body of the text, and then at the end. What if I have two or more papers by the same author? How do I sequence them in the literature cited? And what if I cite the same authors, two or more papers published in the same year? See, these are all the doubts that you get. These doubts are answered from the style sheet. Some of the doubts are answered with your logical conclusion or flow. Appendices. What kind of information belongs to appendix? How do I number the figures and tables in the appendix? How do I label the appendix? See, these doubts, for particularly first-time writers, they will have to be thorough in all these things. Acknowledgement, everybody knows. That's not a big issue. So, one by one, if somebody do not know the answer, then it becomes very difficult. So, I am going very fast because just to give an overview or an outline or a points of the how to write, these are the things which you need to learn. I am giving just an outline, because if I start explaining everything, it takes too long a time, as I said. So now 4 areas of scholarly voice, evidence, paragraphs, and arguments. How you have to write the voice, what voice you have to maintain, and how you have to maintain the evidences, paragraphs, with a theme sentence, and then conclusion sentence, argument, then thesis statement. How do you is the controlling idea of the papers? This is a driving portion of the real article. Is the controlling idea of the paper? Thesis statement control. Okay, this has to be the flow. More than a topic, but thesis states specific point of view of the author in relation to the topic and identify the focus of the paper. See, in various other social science and as well as the general article or a newspaper article, they give a fancy title. In science, engineering, or even research scholarly communication or scholarly writing, there is no fancy title. They have to pinpoint that thesis statement and a title very clearly. Then only readers will come in. Otherwise, if it is a fancy title, nobody will read that. Then nobody even go into the abstract also. There itself, it has to be defined whether it is interesting to somebody or not. Thesis statement may be most difficult part of academic writing. See, coming to the 1 or 3 words or a thesis statement, it's not that easy. See, if we make it very clear, readers are more and easier to focus the study, easier the rest of the paper to write. And there are so many statements. As I say, this is an example I have taken from some study, and these are the Weak statement is Lincoln issued an emancipate proclamations to free the slaves. But next one, it is again a vague title. And Lincoln issued, okay, free the slaves in South, that particular place, and why. Then it gives a more detail. And again, the purpose of issuing the proclamation was not to abolish the slavery, but to end the war more quickly. So one by one in a thesis statement after the title is making it very clear why, what, where, how it is done. So this will guide the total article. So you can get so many examples of this, how much of details it is covering or not. And the focus of the paper becomes narrower as the thesis statement becomes more specific. That's what I tried to communicate. There are so many are there to write. I don't know whether there is time or not. Strong beginning and strong and samples are there, authors may find authors. Then goes to the punctuations. Punctuations you can see in the article where period, what does it mean, how does it mean in a scientific communication, scholarly communication, how to use, whether to use or not, where. These are the things it is given very clearly. So it keeps it is, and there are so many tools are there to improve your scholarly writing. Grammarly is there to improve your grammar and writings. Pro writing aid is there. So white smoke. There are so many tools are come. There are hundreds of tools for various purpose. I think with this I say thank you very much. Hello.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your valuable knowledge on different aspects of scholarly writing. Now I request the participants to clear their queries, if any.
Any query on this? Because it's a very vast thing it is. If you go in detail, point by point, I say already I have given 101 questions to you to understand more and more. If you have any doubt, if I know very clearly, if I can remember that, I definitely will explain you.
Any queries from participant side?
Maybe from morning they are feeling bored or they want to take rest. But one thing is clear, none of this is comprehensive. I could give you an outline. Or if there is anything to improve, criticism also can be mentioned.
Hope that there is no queries from the audience side. So I thank you, sir. Thank you for your contribution.
If they have understood thoroughly, then there is no question. If they don't understand anything, then also no question. So one of these, but I'm happy that things are there. Some are there in the group. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for the contribution. Thank you. Dear participants, thus we have come to an end of the 4th day of the FDP on diagnostic maintenance of mechanical systems. We will rejoin tomorrow at 10 a.m. with the next speaker. Thank you.